Hi everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Rattastic Discussions Podcast. I know it's been a little while since the last episode, and I didn't mean for it to take as long as it has, but I'm just really busy right now with life and the PhD and working. So I've decided that the best way to do this, because it is something that I really want to do, is to just go all in on the PhD stuff and sort of take a research-led approach to this, which fits quite well actually with what I want to do anyway, because I want to combine the Rat Welfare Initiative and Rattastic Discussions together. It's sort of semi-combined anyway, but I want to, make that pretty concrete. So actually, I think that going all in on research, which is somewhat lacking when it comes to pet rats. We have lots of research on lab rats, and we have quite a lot of research on wild rats, but we have barely anything on pet rats. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to do a PhD on pet rat welfare, is because we don't know anything. I mean, we know a lot of stuff about rat welfare, but from a scientific perspective, we don't actually have the evidence there to back it up. And it makes it really hard to change regulations with, lab rat welfare, because there's nothing saying that the way they're kept is bad. So there's been a lot of improvements over the years, and so they are generally kept in better conditions than they used to be, but they're not kept at the standard that, most rat owners would be keeping their rats at. But we don't have any evidence, so that's kind of the gap that I wanted to fill with my PhD. So what led me sort of to deciding I wanted to do a PhD on rats was I did this project for my undergrad in zoology, where I actually created the Rat Welfare Initiative, and it's very much similar to the Rabbit Welfare Association, I think it's called. It is aimed at improving pet rat welfare in the UK. And there has been a little bit of research in this area, but not really very much. And it's just, there's a massive gap between what I, as a rat owner, think I know, and what we actually know from a scientific perspective. So I thought, well, this is what I want to do, and I want to do a PhD, I want to work in academia ideally, so why not, do pet rat welfare for my PhD. So yeah, that's how that happened. And so yeah, I thought I would take a scientific approach to this podcast and sort of focus down on what we know from a scientific point of view and what we don't know and what research needs to be done. And hopefully at some point I'll also be able to talk about some of the research I've been doing, although nothing is, finished enough that I can really talk about it at this stage. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Rat Welfare Initiative. So you can find the Rat Welfare Initiative at this address, ratwelfareinitiative.rattastic-discussions.co.uk. So the Rat Welfare Initiative is a project aimed at improving pet rat welfare in the UK. Pet rat welfare in the UK is a concern as there's currently no specific legislation surrounding the best keeping practices of rats. The 5 welfare needs are set out by the Animal Welfare Act 2006, and these are the need for a suitable environment, the need for a suitable diet, the need to be housed with or apart from other animals, the need to be able to exhibit normal behaviour patterns, and the need to be protected from pain, suffering, injury and disease. So this initiative intends to focus on solutions to some of the biggest pet rat welfare concerns. And as part of this project, I also created a pet rat code of practice that I would really like to get taken further and get it into some legislation. So here are the 5 welfare needs again: the need for a suitable environment, the need for a suitable diet, the need to be housed with or apart from other animals, the need to be able to exhibit normal behaviour patterns, and the need to be protected from pain, suffering, injury and disease. So if we just take the first one just now, the need for a suitable environment. So you should really provide your rats with a spacious cage that has lots of levels and is complex. It also needs to have places to shelter and hide, and enrichment items like dig boxes and climbing equipment. So this, the picture I've got here, this is an old PowerPoint deck, and it's reasonably okay, although I had slightly older rats at the time, but ideally you'd want to have lots more substrate rather than just a newspaper. Though I do have a dig box that sort of countered that. And a lot more complexity, a lot more levels, less of the shelves ideally. That was more because they were a wee bit older and they needed the shelves. But a lot more things to climb on, a lot of fall breakers, and that would be, kind of the ideal, I guess. We just take the next one just now. So the need for a suitable diet. I've got a couple of infographics here that I've done. So we've got roughly the percentages of different kinds of foods that a rat needs, and I've also got a little body condition score in the other side. But basically, you need to provide your rats with fresh water daily, a nutritious diet, such as something from rat rations. That's what I feed my rats. But there are lots out there, and you can make your own mix, and there are a lot of options. And you also need to supplement their diet with fresh fruit and essential minerals. So if I just take the next one, this is a need to be housed with or apart from other animals. So you should be providing your rats with companionship of other rats and bonding time with you, their owner, as well. And you also need to protect them from being around other animals that could be considered a predator species for rats, so like cats and ferrets and snakes, and potentially even dogs, but there's not actually enough research out there to know whether or not rats consider dogs to be predator species at the moment. So the next one is to be protected from suffering, injury, and disease. So you should really be providing your rats with a vet that's knowledgeable about rats. Regular checks to catch any health issues early. You can do lots of health checks on your own as well. These don't all need to be at a vet, but it doesn't hurt to also see a knowledgeable vet as well. And you should also be providing your rats with non-dusty materials that are less likely to aggravate their sensitive respiratory systems. And then we take the last one, which is the need to be able to perform natural behaviours. So you should be providing your rats with a safe place to explore outside of the cage, non-dusty nesting and digging materials so that they can engage in nesting and digging behaviours. So for rats, a few of the things that are very important natural behaviours for them are climbing and also digging, nesting, and also foraging. And finally, exploring as well. So I've just on this slide here, I've got the whole infographic. You can't probably see it very well just because of the shape and size of it, but it is also available on the Rat Welfare Initiative website, so it's worth checking that out. The Rat Welfare Initiative is currently working on a way for owners to provide their rats with the opportunity to perform natural behaviours, particularly the behaviour of exploring, even if they don't have much space or the ability to let rats free roam in a whole room. There's a few things I've used over the years. I've used a cat tree and sort of given it a makeover to make it a rat tree. I've also used dolls' houses before. What I've found in both cases is the rats don't stay on either of those things. The rats are quite happy using the whole room. But in some scenarios that can be a problem, if you're renting, maybe your landlord really doesn't like that. So, you've got to find other solutions, I guess. So this years ago when I started the Rat Welfare Initiative, this was the original sort of drawing that I had come up with of trying to come up with sort of a small space but increase it vertically so that the rats could actually get a lot of space and a lot of places to climb. And I actually made a mock-up of this. And what I'm going to say is
it doesn't work. It didn't really work. So this is a picture of Jack. So there's not really anything in that at the moment. There's a tunnel and there's a bit of cardboard stuff. But there's not really anything to play in that. But it was just let's see what happens when I put the new baby rats in the playpen I've got. And I was about to add some stuff, and Jack's already jumped and nearly got out there. So Jack, Theo, and Ghost were pretty quick. They were all jumping out of there. There was no chance they were staying in the playpen. Freddie wasn't having such a good time with the jumping thing, but Freddie, he was going underneath the playpen and he got out that way, so that didn't really work. So it's something I'm still working on, but I would very much be interested in if anybody has any ideas for how you might do this. I know a lot of people use playpens and they work. I've just never had any success in keeping rats in the playpen. And they didn't need to be in the playpen, they could run around the whole room with me, so that's kind of what they've ended up doing. And I'm also really interested in what can be done to help older rats with problems live as happy and as healthy of a life as possible. So on the left, I've got Darwin, who had hind leg degeneration. And I was doing a bit of hydrotherapy with him in sort of warmish water. I know that's definitely not something you could do with every rat. Some rats really hate water. But Darwin was a super friendly rat. He wasn't keen on the water to start with, but he did trust me. And I worked with my vet, and it was never gonna cure him or anything, but it was sort of if this can make him ease sort of any discomfort he's in and help him. And we did a lot of like sitting in the water and moving his legs, and he could, he really struggled when he was out of the water to move his legs, but he could do it in the water. And he quickly went from not liking the water to actually enjoying his little sessions in the water. So I'd be really interested in, if that's something that I could maybe take forward and do in the future with other rats. And then on the right, we've got Bailey and the foraging nest I got him. So towards the end of his life, Bailey was very much on one level. The hind leg degeneration that he had, it didn't stop him, but he just couldn't really climb anymore. And he'd spent his whole life sort of on several levels, and I felt that the bottom level was quite boring for him, so I had to do a whole makeover, and I bought one of these foraging nests, and I filled it with lots of extra stuff and nesting materials as well, and give him lots of things to do, and he seemed to really enjoy that as well. And then the other thing that I'm really interested in is other types of enrichment that can make life more interesting for all rats, like puzzle feeders and things like that. And that's kind of what I want to do with the Rat Welfare Initiative is, make sure that all the welfare needs of rats are covered, and also, look into how we can make this easier for people that are owning the animals, especially, when it comes to like free roaming and stuff. How do you make that work in a rental apartment, for example? And then I also want to look at how we can improve, the lives of older rats, and also, in general, the mental lives of rats as well.
So I hope that all makes sense, and hopefully you'll want to stay along for the ride. So make sure you subscribe, and I will see you later. Bye.